Hi everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is Kathleen and today's video I wanted to go ahead and share with you guys the books that I read during the month of January. I meant to film this a couple weeks ago, but I'm always late, so here we are. In case you guys are new to my channel, I did go through a pretty bad reading slump from August to December. Towards December, I did start getting my desire to read again, but it was pretty bad. Pretty much I did read somewhat during that reading slump. However, all of those books that I read, I kind of felt forced. I really had to force myself to read, and now I'm back. I am definitely back on reading, which is a great feeling. I absolutely love reading. It's why this channel exists, to share my love of books with you guys. So in the month of January, I read a total of 5 books, which I'm very proud because again, it's the month after the end of my reading slump, so I'm very happy with that number. So let's go ahead and get started with those books that I read. Alright, so the first 2 books that I read during January is actually a duology, and the first book is Flawed by Cecilia Ahern, and the second book is its sequel, Perfect by Cecilia Ahern. Flawed I got in an Owl Crate box a few years ago. I think it's been at least 2 years since I've got this book. I got Perfect without having read Flawed maybe a year ago, and I got it from Book Outlet. It was really cheap, and that's the reason why I got it. I had the first book, I was like, might as well get the second book, and I am glad that I got the second book because I ended up loving the first book so much that I dived into the second book right away. I gave the first book 4 stars and I gave the final book, Perfect, 5 stars. And it's a dystopian world where people can be labeled as flawed, and there's many reasons why you can become flawed, but our main character, she does something that is frowned upon and she's labeled as flawed. It talks about ethics and morals, is doing the right thing even though it'll be frowned upon by society. The best thing to do even though it'll have major consequences for you is essentially what the first book is about. I really enjoyed the series. I really liked how the second book ended. There were so many moments where I was cheering for the main character. There were so many moments where I was very emotional for the main character. Thought it was a great character development, which is why I ended up loving the second book so much and gave it 5 stars. But I would highly recommend it. It's a duology. The third book that I read, I picked it up just on a whim. I was in the mood to read a sci-fi book set in outer space, and this book has been on my shelves for a little while, so I decided to just go ahead and pick it up, and it is Nik Xia by Scott Rankjen. I apologize, I'm terrible at pronouncing last names, so I'm not sure how you pronounce his last name, but I loved this book so much. So this is about a group of teenagers who have been selected for this space program, and they're on a journey to travel to this planet called Eden, and on Eden there's this material called Nik Xia, and there they're supposed to basically harvest Nik Xia and bring back to Earth because it's very valuable. Apparently the natives of this planet, they don't allow adults on the planet. They only allow young people or even children on the planet, and so that's why these teenagers have been tasked doing this job. I absolutely love the first book. The first book, it we don't get to the planet until the very end. This is just their journey towards the planet and them getting used to how things will be once they're on the planet, and they're doing simulations and they're learning different techniques over things. I ended up really loving this series. I think it's very underrated, and it has a over 4.0 star rating on Goodreads, so that should tell you that a lot of people have loved this book as well. It's a highly underrated because I don't see a lot of people talking about this series, so I would highly recommend. The next book that I read was actually part of the BOOKTUBE Chicks book club that I co-host with my friend Chloe from the Brunette Bibliophile and Desiree from Libri Labra, and our book for the month of January was Forever Interrupted by Taylor Jenkins Reid. Taylor Jenkins Reid wrote The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, which is one of my favorite books of all time, and I love this book. So this is about a young couple, and they had like a whirlwind of a romance. They met, 6 months later they got married, and literally 9 or 10 days later he dies in an accident. So it's pretty eventful, pretty fast for what we consider normal, I guess. And this is basically their story. It kind of jumps back in time. You kind of see the beginning of the relationship and then after his accident, and I absolutely love the story. Not as much as I loved Daisy Jones and the Six and 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo, but I did love it enough to give it 4 stars. There are some moments where you really feel for Elsie, and there are some moments you're really angry with Elsie, and they're just this book plays with your emotions, and it's a great Taylor Jenkins Reid book. Alright, and then the final book that I read during the month of January was a sequel, and it is Like a River Glorious by Ray Carson. This is this sequel to Walk on Earth a Stranger, and Walk on Earth a Stranger is set during the gold rush era in the United States. It follows this girl named Lee Westfall. In the first book, they're making their way towards California for the gold rush, and Lee has this special ability in where she can sense gold. So back then, it's a really cool power to have, and obviously she tries to keep it a secret because if people knew about it, they would do very bad things in order to use her to find gold. And that's what happens in the first book. She's escaping her uncle who murdered her parents because of what she can do. I actually really enjoyed the series, surprisingly, because I have read another series by Ray Carson. Well, I read one other book by Ray Carson, which was Girl of Fire and Thorns, and I did not enjoy that first book, and I gave it 2 stars. I just didn't find the story to be engaging. I didn't really care about the main character. So I was surprised by how much I really enjoyed the series. I gave it 4 stars, and usually I feel like a lot of books that I read, especially when they're the second book, they fall in that second book slump. This was definitely not it. There are a lot of things that happened. Lee's powers get stronger, and if anything, I feel like more things happen in this book. It's a great series. I would highly recommend it. And there you go. That is all for the books that I read during the month of January. Let me know how your reading has been. I'm just very glad to be out of this reading slump. I'm glad that I've gotten my desire to read back. So anyway, guys, thank you all so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this video. Please give it a like if you did, and subscribe to my channel if you're not already. All of my social medias are linked down below, including Twitter, Instagram, and Goodreads if you'd like to follow me on those platforms. Hope to see you guys on my next video. Have a good day, guys, and keep reading. Bye!